India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and China's President Xi Jinping met 4 times in the year 2018. Those meetings were aimed at improving bilateral ties between the two countries. But it looks like the matter of the Indo-China border remains a thorny issue. India has slammed China for taking exception to Prime Minister Modi's visit to the state of Arunachal Pradesh in India. India's Ministry of External Affairs has made it clear that Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of India. The Foreign Ministry's statement read, and I quote, "Indian leaders visit Arunachal Pradesh from time to time as they visit other parts of India." The consistent position has been conveyed to the Chinese side on several occasions. India's response comes to Beijing raising an objection to PM Modi's visit to Arunachal Pradesh. The Indian Prime Minister was in the state to garner support for the BJP for the upcoming general elections of India. In a statement issued by the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Beijing said, and I quote, "China urges the Indian side to proceed from the overall situation of bilateral relations, respect China's interests and concerns, cherish the momentum of improving relations between the two countries, and refrain from any actions that intensify disputes and complicate the border issue." China's statement came after PM Modi visited Arunachal Pradesh and laid the foundation stones of projects worth over 4,000 crore rupees. This was the first time the Indian Prime Minister visited Arunachal Pradesh after his informal summit with China's President Xi Jinping in 2018. Both countries are trying to reset ties that were strained after the 72-day-long standoff in Doklam in the year 2017. Atul Aneja, senior journalist, joins us live from Beijing on the phone line with more. Mr. Aneja, thank you so much for being with us. Talk to us. It seems like a bit of an overreaction from China, because at the end of the day, PM Modi was in Arunachal Pradesh as part of his election campaign.
I think it is consistent with the position which China has been adopting towards Arunachal Pradesh of late. So I do not see it necessarily as an overreaction. I think both sides understand, the Chinese understand that India is also now in the election mode, so it's quite understandable the timing of Prime Minister Modi's visit. That is, of course, the perception of the Chinese. And India has been consistent about its position on Arunachal, as you mentioned, which was conveyed today again in the statement by the Ministry of External Affairs. So frankly, I see this just as a hiccup in the overall relationship which has been ongoing between India and China. And I think that's where the matters are going to end.
Right.
The bigger story of what is happening between India and China post-Wuhan, and then there's a number of other steps which have taken place, I don't think this particular incident, if you can call it, in any way overrides. And what Hua Chunying, by the way, in her statement, mentions the overall momentum of the relationship. I think Chinese are also very clear. They want to continue with the momentum which has been built up since last April.
Right. But, Mr. Aneja, India is also very clear that at the end of the day, Arunachal Pradesh is a part of India. The Indian Prime Minister has every single right to go to the state just like any other state in India. That is India's position in response to what Beijing has said.
That's right, because India has stated that Arunachal is a part of India, and the Chinese have disputed it. That's the whole issue why we had the 1962 war, and thereafter the Chinese have not recognized the McMahon line. So that's been there. We rightly state that Arunachal is an integral part of India, but the Chinese have their view, and that is something which has been conveyed for decades.
All right, Mr. Aneja, requesting you to please stay with us on the phone line, because we have our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, who now joins us live from Delhi with more details on the story that he is getting from his sources. Siddhant, talk to us. What is the latest that you're picking up?
Delhi has slammed publicly China for making its statement. But if we talk about India-China relationship, yes, as Atul said, both the countries are keen to have good bilateral relationship and, of course, have been trying their level best. As you have just mentioned, that 4 times the leaders of China and India met last year. But one small incident, and we see statement coming from China. This time, of course, this was the visit of the Indian Prime Minister to Arunachal Pradesh, which China says it's South Tibet, part of South Tibet, and claims to be a disputed territory. But earlier also, So we saw how China reacted on NSG, India's bid for NSG, or whether it's placing Pakistani terrorists on the UN list, on UN sanction list. So it clearly shows that even though both the countries are making sure that there is no untoward incident as it happened in 2017, and even though the Indian Prime Minister has been saying that we have a good relationship, when it comes to NSG, when it comes to placing Pakistani terrorists on UN sanction list, or whether it is a visit of the Indian Prime Minister or even Dalai Lama to Arunachal Pradesh, China is quick to react and issues a statement. This time around, I think it was a strongly worded statement.
Siddhant, stay with us. Mr. Aneja, I would like to take that to you. You know, there is improvement in ties between India and China, but the hard issues remain. You can't look away from it. And you've seen a pattern of China reacting on all those issues. Mr. Aneja.
You mentioned the security side of it continues to remain problematic. And by security, I mean the border issues is a standout. And then there are issues on terrorism and other things, NSG, etc., which have not been resolved. Border we don't expect to be resolved so quickly, but other issues like NSG and Masood Azhar, for example, are something which there might be movement at some point in time, but right now there hasn't been. So the security track has not been moving as it is, but there is dialogue. But on the economic track, for example, in terms of exports of Indian agricultural products, the most recent thing which has happened, people-to-people exchanges, number of other issues. So there is a movement on that, the security dialogue, the counter-terrorism drills which we had with China recently. So it's a mixed bag. And if you look at the big picture, I do see the momentum going forward. And, well, it's not confirmed. There's been no confirmation, but there have been news reports, and it was in Nikkei Asian Review, that President Xi Jinping is likely to pay a visit to India very shortly, and that's before the election. So, I mean, if this comes true, then you see this particular incident as a very small blip in the overall framework, the trajectory which China-India relationships has taken.
Mr. Atul Aneja, senior journalist, joining us on the phone line from Beijing with that perspective. Siddhant, one last question to you. I wanted to ask you what happens from here on. What exactly are you picking up from Indian government sources of how they're looking to take this forward?
Well, it's a kind of tradition, China reacting whenever there's an Indian leader going to Arunachal Pradesh, and of course India slamming back, saying that Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of India. But if you look at the overall position, China would not be keen to push New Delhi very hard in coming few months, or perhaps here, given the fact that Beijing is already being pushed hard by Washington, especially on the trade front. But largely, if we look at the entire relationship between India and China, both know that they are growing economies, they are large countries who are neighboring each other, and first time in the history that both the countries have a common border. So they know there are contentious issues. They need to solve it properly, diplomatically, without engaging militarily. But of course, China is not going to budge very soon when it comes to NSG, or whether it's supporting Pakistan when it comes to issue of terrorism, or when it comes to any leaders visit to Arunachal Pradesh, which it has a contested position. It has been claiming that it's a disputed territory, while India has been saying that it, of course, is an integral part of India and will remain so.
Siddhant Sibal, our principal diplomatic correspondent, joining us live from New Delhi with the latest on that story that we'll continue to track. Thank you, Siddhant, for now, for joining us.